Yeah, so
All right, we're live. What's up, guys? John Sentes here, Cutternation podcast number 79. Please help us out. The podcast has been growing. Rate, review, subscribe, share it out onto your social media. We tweet it out. We've been putting out highlights for the podcast. We're really enjoying it. And today's guest is one of our longtime friends, Mr. Taylor Ahearn. What's up, buddy?
what's up, boys? How we doing?
Good, man. So I wanted to get you in here. We haven't talked like this in a long time, and I know we get into some stuff. And I wanted to talk to you about last season. You won the championship with the River City Rascals, and I feel like you had like a really good year. And for when we met, to when Cass joined and how the whole journey went in your career, you made some massive strides and changes in a lot of things, and I just wanted to talk about it.
Yeah. I'd say that last season was definitely by far my best season professionally. Maybe even like ever since, even throughout my college days. I think that this past season was probably like the most fun and the most confident I've been in a while, and I attribute a lot of it to you guys. Just like helped me be more confident in my pitch selections and just my stuff in general, and just like throwing everything in whatever count. That's something that a lot of people don't really do. They're kind of told not to. Like if you fall behind in the count, they'll tell you, throw a fastball in there. Get back in the count or whatever. But I was able to trust my stuff and myself on the mound a lot more, and I think it showed in the stats, and we kind of just helped the team win as best as I could, and we ended up having a good year, finishing on top. So it was fun.
You were the number 2, 3, 5.
I was one of the starting pitchers.
What do you feel like you were?
I mean, I don't know.
What I was gonna ask is, you weren't the ace. What?
No, I was not.
I'm just curious. Have you been the ace? What do you think it would have been like to be the ace on that staff?
Well, we had a really good pitcher. I think he won pitcher of the year. His name was Brandon Feldman. He did really well. If I was the ace on the team, like it was a great team to be a part of, the chemistry and everything. And
do you do well in the ace role? Is I guess what I'm asking.
Yeah, I would say so. I'd say I could. But I was just kind of, when it was my turn to pitch, I just focused on the job and the task at hand, like not caring about anything else, just trying to help the team win. So it's really all that mattered to me at that moment.
I obviously know you really well. That was something it took me, I've always done really well being, I think all three of us, right? A little bit of a chip on our shoulder, like people don't believe in us kind of thing. And it's kind of fun to be on a team where you can be yourself, and then, not, there's always pressure, but not the same kind when you're supposed to be the guy, you know what I mean? And so,
yeah, we were all just we were just a bunch of goofballs, we weren't really thinking of, who was the better player on the team or who was the better pitcher on the team. We were just going out there and having fun. We'd be like, it's independent ball, and we were just kind of, before games, we were throwing the football around, having some fun, running routes for our conditioning. It was just a good time, and it was kind of carefree. So I think that's what helped us, kind of come out on top even more. Is we just didn't have a care in the world. We just wanted to be kids out there, and kind of just helped us go all the way to the end. So,
is that something that you did well at San Marcos?
I think so. Cal State, San Marcos, we struggled a little bit, but we still had a great time out there. We tried to not let it affect us too much, and kind of just went about our daily business. trying to win every ball game, even though obviously you can't win every ball game. And but no matter how much we struggled or how much we were having success, we just kind of went out there and tried to do our jobs as best we could. So,
dude, you're such a sport. You're such a sports interview sometimes.
The main point is just you got to try and have fun every time, whether you're losing or winning. You just got to keep it. You just got to kind of keep it 50-50.
Well, I think what's so interesting is, I say that I know you, but I don't know you, and there's that. I know you as a baseball guy and that stuff, but so just like when Taylor came back from the season, he talks about it being such an impactful season. Like, dude, he walked in the room a little bit differently after that season.
Yeah.
Right? And
you came back, you pulled down 102?
I think it was 101. Yeah.
101? Yeah, 101? Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, I came back, like, despite playing, I think we had like a 90-something game season. I think I was part of about 75 games of those, or 75 of those games, because, I had that little injury prior to leaving. But I think of the time I was there, despite I think I pitched a lot. So when I came back, I felt surprisingly like very athletic and like in shape. And I think I attribute that to staying on top of my routine during the season. Every day between starts, just kind of staying on routine, doing some mobility, movement stuff. And I came back like feeling pretty good, and I was like, hey, let's pull down today. And it's when I finally broke the 100 mark. Obviously, people are throwing like 110 everywhere, but for me, that was a big achievement for me. So it's
massive. It was progress. Yeah. Can we talk about the shoulder issue? I actually, till you mentioned it right there, I kind of forgot about it, but I remember that was a thing, and I feel like there's some light into that because we've learned a lot about you personally and your shoulders and your hips, and like you said, as this situation started, that you have to stay on some things. So let's go over kind of like what you were feeling. You and I remember what you and I were talking about.
Did you happen to see Wiener just jump up?
Wayne's famous.
First time, and then came up just like when whales just come out midair, just like just hovered onto the
hilarious.
Oh man,
that's great.
Awesome.
So when I first met you, John, it was actually I had like a tricep tendonitis. It wasn't even my shoulder at that time. It was kind of like a pain in the back of my elbow, and I just saw you one day at 24 Hour Fitness, never meeting you or anything before. And I was like, hey, this guy's a baseball guy. Let's talk to him. And then we just started talking about like the injury that I had going on with my arm. And we tried to, you invited me over to the facility, and we kind of like tried to pinpoint where, that pain could be originating from. And I think for the most part, we were pretty right with like the whole the nerves going through the teres minor and all that kind of stuff, kind of rubbing.
The pronation was big too.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
I remember you didn't have I wonder, knowing now what we know about spin efficiency, I wonder what your spin efficiency was on that ball.
I don't know, but that ball is probably moving sideways. I was like, that ball is probably spinning sideways a lot.
Yeah, you were throwing.
Hey, I have a question. John, if you throw a fastball like the 3 to 9, you can still have 100% spin efficiency, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So you can throw a slider, a sidearm or a side spin slider with 100% spin efficiency.
Yes.
And then a bullet spin. Yeah. Okay. Just making sure.
Yeah, the bullet's the one that gets weird.
It's zero.
I was just throwing in my backyard one day, and then I was like, hey, let's throw a couple sliders. And like on the third slider, like I felt like a sharp pain in the back of my elbow. I was like, ow. I was worried. I didn't know what was going on. Like I thought it was just gonna go away after a few days, and just never did. And so I finally went to the doctor, and they were saying, tricep tendonitis, and do these exercises, see if it helps out. They didn't really help out. And so
was it just a general practitioner?
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. And then I just went, started just, massaging it out with lacrosse balls and like whatever, and kind of just hitting different spots that aren't the elbow, trying to see if something was tight that was causing that tension or whatever. And found some tightness everywhere. And I think a lot of it had to do with just keep throwing. I think I just kind of like threw out of it, along with the massage work that I was doing on my own. So, yeah, once I went to the season, that pain was pretty much gone. And then I developed some shoulder stuff. It was the same thing, find the areas that are, a little bit tight, see if it's originating that pain. And then soon enough, that shoulder pain went away as well. So, now fingers crossed, like I'm feeling pretty good right now. So let's keep it that way. But
yeah, the shoulder stuff, I wanted to touch on that. I know that we started doing a lot more, opening and closing with the bands, trying to work on the mobility and the range of motion of it and what you can do. Mm-hmm. Is that what? Can you talk about like when did you start thinking that was like way more of a focus for you?
In terms of the shoulder pain?
No, just like remember we started doing some more stretches and stuff like that. What?
Oh, yes.
Tell us about the process with some of the shoulder exercises we were doing.
Yeah, so I was just trying to make sure that I took my warm up and my kind of like post throwing recovery a lot more seriously. And one day, we were at the gym and Cass was talking about a whole thing called loosen, lengthen, and strengthen. And so I kind of just went into that idea in terms of like what I like to do in a warm up and what I like to do after throwing. Loosen, just massage it out a little bit before throwing, and then after throwing, everything is a little bit more intense because it's more recovery and you just kind of want to activate everything up again. But after the loosening, you just stretch a little bit to lengthen, and then do some strengthening with the bands. Like that kind of idea helped me access, a better like mentality or like work ethic when it came to warming up and post recovery. And after I started doing that, the pain just slowly went away, and now I don't do it as heavily. But I still when the pain was there, that was something I really took serious. And now that it's gone, I just make sure I feel good before I throw, whatever that takes. And then yeah, I think just taking care of your business when it comes to your warm up is very important.
I think one thing I want to say is that it's not important that it's perfect. I think one thing that you should know is that our stuff is constantly evolving, and that you're going to get a completely different version of our warm up in a year or two. And that's not a bad thing. So the thing that I think is really stood out to me, and you just talking about your season, was the fact that you just stuck to your routine. And for every guy that goes and plays summer ball, whether it's in the Northwoods or whether it's indie ball or all the professionals, like it's literally their ability to stick to the routine. And hearing some of the stories from bands and knowing what I've heard from professionals in the past, like it legitimately is all the way up to the highest level with guys. I mean, you hear it every now and then where a guy just is like, oh yeah, he's not here for BP yet. Like maybe he won't be in the lineup today. And it's like, but smaller infractions must happen all of the time. And because the whole MO of affiliate ball is to keep that under wraps. That's everybody knows this stuff. So it's interesting. And it's not too complicated, right?
No, what's easy, what the best part about it is you do what makes you feel good. Like everyone's different. So, not one warm up is going to make one guy or everybody feel the same. Like one guy's probably going to take more out of it, and someone else is probably going to need to do a little bit more extra or a little bit less to feel better. So
I like that you brought up the loosen, lengthen, strengthen. I forget about those are simple ideas that can be so powerful. Just to clarify, in case it wasn't iterated, it's the idea whether it's pre-throwing or post-throwing, and this doesn't even have to be doing with throwing, right? It's that loosen everything up, massage, foam roll, whatever it is, lacrosse ball, that kind of stuff. Then you stretch out the muscle. then you would strengthen it. So if you're
Mhm.
only going to work on whatever that muscle is, that's a good way to do it. If you're going to do that's a good way to prep the body in general. So just to
Yeah.
clarify that
And-
doesn't, there's no particular order to where you place or placement of that. It's just the idea.
Yeah, and like I said before, pre-throwing, you don't do. I mean, for me personally, I wouldn't do it as much as I would post-throwing because I want to make sure I'm fresh and feel good. I don't want to tire myself out too much before I throw. But like after I throw, that's the time to get the blood flow going again. So I'll spend a little bit more time on the strength side.
And it really does
doing
depend on where you're at in your training, where you're at in your year. I think one thing with the younger athletes, it's simply that they're not going to take it seriously. They're not going to atrophy like you're going to atrophy. Like they're just going to like do it to learn the patterns. And so for the younger player, I think like the volume of this is super critical, that they just get a bunch of it in and it doesn't really matter, what it is. Where you were already alluding to yours is like, okay, yes, but then as the older player, this is where you have to start. This is your stuff. And we got to talk about it. I don't know if you listened to the USC podcast, but they were bringing up how they're allowing their players to basically dictate their throwing program. And then, we brought it up with, it's come up in other conversations too about how like that's kind of the younger coaches, that's kind of the new school way of doing it. Of like, I have no idea what you feel. I can't. How could I write your throwing program? That's outrageous. Right. And that's refreshing to hear, but there's also going to be a flip side of the coin of like, there's going to be dudes that don't want to do work, and you're going to be, tempted to, say, well, I suppose if that's what works for you, but it's like, there's a level of like, you have to. So so the question is, if you have to do 1 to 2 things, stripped down to nothing, what are you doing to be the best baseball player you possibly can be? If you don't have any resources, what are you doing? Like 1 or 2 things.
If I don't have any resources, like what am I going to do to be the best that I can be?
Yep.
I mean,
you don't have plyo balls, you don't have or maybe you do. Maybe you have one plyo ball. I don't know.
If I have one plyo ball, I'm at least just getting a few throws in. Whether depending on the weight. Like if I had like a 4-pound ball, I'm not trying to throw that thing a lot. But if I had a lighter ball, I'm still trying to get a few more throws in. Probably going to try and do all the exercises still. Maybe increase the volume if it's a lighter weight. If it's a heavier weight, maybe decrease the volume. But at the same time, like it just comes down.
You even have would you use a weighted ball, or would you just have like, let's say baseball and glove is included. Like you don't have to account for that. Like, what are you doing? Maybe that's a hard question. I don't know. Like, what's the most important thing? What's the most important thing to be the best baseball player you possibly can be? Now, ready, go.
I think it's just reps throwing the baseball itself. That's what you're going to be throwing in the game. So, I mean, you got to get all your reps in with that pretty much. Like majority of your reps with that. If you want to throw a couple plyo balls beforehand, whether it's reverse throws or just whatever, go for it. But, at the end of the day, you're throwing that ball at the seams. So that's if I had to choose. I mean, obviously, if I had to choose anything, like I'm gonna just choose the baseball because that's the priority.
Did you play other sports when you were a kid?
I did. Yeah, I played.
Oh, sweet. Okay, what else? What's your sign? I'm just kidding. What were your sports?
Well, obviously, like every other kid in America, played soccer growing up a little bit, and
I did not.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I did at recess.
Just kidding.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
See?
exactly.
Yeah,
in school, yes. In school, yes, but not organized. I wish I did play organized soccer.
Yeah, I started. I played soccer a lot. Yeah, that was probably like the first sport that I played, and then I played t-ball, and I was like, oh, this is pretty fun. And then I was my parents were like, hey, you should try that. Yeah. Oh yeah. And then my parents were like, hey, you should try basketball. You might like that too. And I was like, I don't know. For some reason, basketball like freaked me out when I was younger, and I just didn't want to play. And then same with football. Like I just wasn't into it. But as I got older and like kind of seeing these sports on TV, I was like, oh, that looks fun to play. So I started playing basketball and football towards like my my like middle school years. At my I went to a parochial school, like a little Catholic school, and we had like flag football from like 5th to 8th grade, and then played basketball too. So that's probably where a majority of my sports were, like in school ball. And then baseball was just its own separate thing, whether it was like little league or pony league. And yeah, and then when I got to high school, it was football my freshman year, basketball my freshman sophomore year, and then baseball 4 years. And then yeah, sometimes I wish I kept playing other sports in high school, just to, you only have high school once. So, and if you're good enough to play those sports, might as well just carry it out and kind of grow your overall athleticism. But like for me, I just wanted to focus straight on baseball. That's what I love the most and what I wanted to play the most. So,
what position did you play?
In like a different sport, or in baseball or basketball, football?
Sorry, Cass lost it. Yeah, he said what,
I didn't realize you.
Yeah, Haley came home and Leon went a little nuts. He said, what position did you play in football?
I was actually quarterback.
Quarterback.
Yeah.
Of course you were. Slinging the rock.
Flag football, that was fun. That was so fun playing quarterback. And then like when I got to high school, I played quarterback for freshman football. And as freshmen, like not everybody's like the biggest guy. Like we got a lot of small freshmen on our team. Some of the teams that we played were really good. And I was getting sacked like maybe at least 8 times a game. And this is not a good like I'd pretty much get the snap and then I had to run for my life immediately because our O-line wasn't the biggest or strongest. So I was kind of running for my life right away. And I kind of just like maybe not want to play it again. And yeah, so I stopped playing. And then like my senior year, like our offensive line was probably the best in the county. It was so good, and a few of them are actually my really good buddies nowadays. But like they got so much better, and I was like, damn, I kind of wish I kept playing quarterback. I feel like I could have been pretty damn good, but I mean, it is what it is. Like I have no regrets whatsoever when it came to that. But I definitely wish I played basketball 4 years. That's for sure. That's probably my second favorite sport for sure.
I think the one thing that I'm learning over the course of this podcast and is that, especially about I'm talking about myself, is that I think I really enjoy competition as a recreation. Mm-hmm. And like what I'm doing. And Taylor, you and I have talked about playing basketball and all kinds of stuff, and like doing the little mini games we do in the gym. It sounds like the same way with you, like just playing as a general idea seems to be what I'm hearing the theme of a lot of these guests that we're having on and sports. So it's interesting, to hear you talk about the same kind of theme of the whole thing. And I'm finding myself being a little bit bored with working out, as, selfish as I can be in that statement, but the playing part, it seems, the most fun. So that's where I always seem to,
especially during quarantine,
a little bit,
especially during quarantine. It's kind of tough to, work out when it's just like yourself in the gym. Sometimes you want to like see another person on the other side and be like, oh, I can lift more than him, or I can do more. I can do like this better than him, or something like that. So, I mean, obviously you still got to get that work in, but but like when it came to competition, for me, like anything with a ball, like growing up as a kid, like that was like my thing, like sports. I was that kid in school that like couldn't wait till recess. Just go out and play. And I would say a lot of athletes are the same way, of course. But and then like when it was in the classroom as well, like I still got really good grades, and we had these like handwriting notebooks. I don't know if you ever had those in school, but they help like teach you cursive, and like you just do like you write separate letters out in cursive, and then once you do the letters, you start doing more words, and then you start writing sentences. And in class, my buddy and I, like whenever there was like a break in class or something, we would take out that book and start doing the exercises, and we were like, oh, first one to finish, and then finish the handwriting book wins, but like there was no prize. We just wanted to beat each other. So like my friend and I, every time there was a break in subjects or a break in class or whatever, we'd take it out and start scribbling on that notebook. And then like by the time we finished, our teacher was like, all right, take out your handwriting books. We're going to do this lesson today. And my friend and I look at each other and we're like, well, we already finished it. So we don't know what to do here. And I think she just gave us another notebook or something to do. Or like she made us go over it again. Who knows? But like even when it came to that, the classroom setting, there was still a little bit of competition in me for sure.
Oh, for sure. I don't. Yeah. I think I was just as competitive in high school. I took all the. I got weirdly academically competitive, of course. As I'm not surprised now. And then like at the end of high school, I was like, "What am I doing?" I was like, I'm working way too hard at this. This is not. Like I'm not trying to be a doctor. Like I'm trying to be a baseball player, and then I like dialed back. I was like, what, my mom gets mad at me because I tell her all the time. She was like, what? Because I was like, I hated high school. I didn't realize that I hated it at the time, but I just thought everybody had so much homework. And like, I just remember seeing some of the other kids being like, you don't have near the amount of homework. I don't understand. Why am I doing this? This is unnecessary.
Homework. Yeah. We want the least amount of homework because we got practice after school.
Oh, my God, yes.
Friggin' four or five.
I know, right? I remember.
For me, like I didn't.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say like I think I only took like 2 or 3 APs during my high school years, and then like I was a smart kid, but I just didn't want to do so much busy work, and my goal was to just play sports as long as I could, as crazy it may seem, but like, my goal was to play in college and then, hopefully play professionally. So my mind wasn't on like, take these AP courses, even though I'm sure they would have helped me out a lot. But yeah, I don't know what you were going to say, but sorry for taking the reins there.
No, it's all good. It's all good. I'm just realizing it, as this, this pandemic situation is allowing for a lot of reflection and stuff. And so as we're going through some of these podcasts and conversations that we're having with some of these coaches, they're bringing up some good points about, how we affect kids and what we're trying to do with our culture. And I think education with us is a massive thing with like life. And I pride myself on that where, I try to give kids as much quality information as we can. Have you learned anything, in this process that you feel like would be a good message to pass along to the baseball community?
Oh man, definitely a lot. I mean, it's kind of like the whole cliche, trust the process or whatever you want to, you can interpret that in whatever way you want. But if you have like a goal in mind, you're not going to reach it in a straight line. Sometimes there's going to be ups and downs, and you just got to keep believing that, you're on the right path and that you're not doing anything, wrong in specific. You could maybe clean up a couple things, but I mean, nothing's always too serious if you just, stick to the plan. And I think that's something that I've really done well is, at least a lot better than before. It's just, if I have one bad day, it's not the end of the world. You're going to have a lot of bad days, especially in baseball. So, I mean, when it comes to that, you just got to keep kind of trying to stay in a straight line as best you can. But in the end, you're not, there's going to be a lot of downs. So you just got to keep your head up.
You and I have talked a lot about the mental game before any of this. How much of that is? Tell us a little bit about that, because you and I have had some pretty interesting conversations, and give people some insight from your perspective.
Yeah, so I mean, I've always been kind of like a quote unquote perfectionist growing up, and I was kind of like a little bit hard on myself if I wasn't like doing something that I think If I was like doing it the way I wanted it or I assumed it should be done, I would get upset with myself. Or if I like went out and had a bad game, I'd focus on like when I was a hitter or something, I would focus on the 0 for 4 instead of the 0 for 4 with 4 lineouts. It's like you won that day if you have those 4 lineouts, but you get out, you beat the pitcher. Or like same with pitching. You could be dicing hitters up all game, and then a bloop single, then a bloop single and a home run. Like those are like the 2 hits you give up and you lose 2-0 or 2-1. So it's still a phenomenal game, but like you look at the numbers instead of like how well you think that you did. Or you kind of look at the loss instead of like the numbers showing that you had a good game, and that sometimes it just kind of goes vice versa. And I would mainly focus on the negative side of an outing. Even if I had a really good game, I would focus on how many walks did I have, like the negative stuff, and kind of sometimes I would take that into the next outing. And that's kind of like what hurt me in my professional career early on. But this past season, I just kind of went out there and just trusted my stuff, like I said earlier. And whether I had a bad game or not, I'd be like, what, they had a good game. I mean, I struggled a little bit, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to struggle next time. And normally I would go out there and kind of come back, and whichever way. And kind of just build back to that success. But yeah, sometimes it's still hard to not be upset with myself sometimes, or down on myself, but still always something to learn and improve on.
Well, okay, so consider this though. I've never seen you play a game. Like I've never been in that situation at all. So I'm coming from it from a human standpoint, from a right. So how are you getting coached, right? Like think about, what can you say to younger kids from that perspective? Like we've talked a lot about your relationship with us and your relationship with other coaches, and just like how you manage humans, right?
Yeah.
That mental game is what I mean.
Okay. So I think from what you and I have talked about, we've talked about, I don't know if this even like will relate to your question much, but just being upfront with people, not kind of like beating around the bush. You just want to be like upfront with people and yourself. Like if you see that a kid is struggling or whatever or something, you got to address that and be like, hey, like you're in your head right now. I know it's tough, but you gotta go do the game on the wall, the the star game.
Ooh, let's talk about that.
Yeah, kind of helps you focus up a little bit and kind of calm yourself. And then normally whenever a kid did that, they'd go back and kind of just forget about, oh, I didn't hit the strike on this one pitch. We'll tell them to go play the game. They come back and they miss the strike zone, and like it's not even that big of a deal. They're just like, whatever, like next pitch. And so it's kind of, yeah, that's something that really like helped. Like even for me personally, being an older player, doing that is kind of just like you're just focused on a task that's not baseball related. And then once you get back to baseball related tasks, you just forget about
what was the
everything that happened
problem.
prior.
Well, like it's solving a problem for you. What's the problem? Why are you playing the game?
Well, like I said before, like if I missed my spot in a practice situation and I missed my spot or like I'm upset with the velo number or whatever. It's just those little things like that that can carry on into the next pitch in a negative way. The game was to address that immediately and kind of shift the focus to another task in order to, ease the mind and ease the heightened, aggression, I would say. I don't know, like the emotion. The emotion is at a high, so you're trying to bring that down a little bit.
Yeah. So like just Taylor's, you're saying exactly what you're saying. Like these are authentic, fantastic, but I'm just offering some further clarification. So it's like in these moments, it's not like it's a cause effect. I threw a ball, I had a reaction, I go to the board. It's like this starts becoming multiple throws on top of one another, right? This is 3 to 5 minutes of watching yourself turn into this negative habit loop where you're not going to be, practicing very well in that state of mind. So I'm only saying this so like we're not saying that Taylor makes a throw, is critical of himself one time, and then goes to the board and starts, doing mental training. This is something where, we don't, we're going along training, and then all of a sudden we find ourselves like in a bad state of mind. And from a training standpoint, from a coach standpoint, I'm watching this happen, right? I watch the one throw and then the second throw and then the third, and I watch it build. And then also, what I was curious about is from your perspective is when I'm or John is jumping into these moments, right? So, Taylor has a tendency to get frustrated like any athlete does, right? We have high expectations. He already alluded to it, right? I talk about it like where mine is that, you could convince me just like we're very suggestible. Like this is like, you could convince me that me throwing my curveball ever again was the dumbest thing in the world. Like if you made a good enough argument, I'd listen to you. You know what I mean? We're all kind of susceptible to those things. And in these moments where like we are trying to master our craft and we're at war with ourselves, and then we got Cass over here talking about, hey, did you see my shirt? I wore my weird shirt today. Hey, and by the way, your back leg is internally rotating too soon. Was that the best annoying version of myself I could be?
It was definitely Cass for sure. That was good. That was really good.
You want to talk on that?
I think you kind of just nailed it in the head.
I said, what's it like? Like what? Because you have to process that stuff.
I mean,
and you've gotten, and it's awesome, right? Like you've grown in that way in a lot. Wouldn't you agree?
oh, of course. And like when you think of it as like a game situation, like you don't have like those tools that you
I
use
have
at the
come
facility.
at you, bro. I have been a dick. I have come at you, right? In these moments, I'm like, what are you gonna do? You can't handle this, right? What are you gonna do at the next level? What are you gonna do when your job is on the line and somebody gets in your face like this? Like you have to know what that is. I don't want to do. I don't. Right? We've talked about this. I don't want to do this. Like that's not what I like to do. But I'm like, I just can't see how you got to be prepared for those kind of things, right?
Oh yeah, and then like I said, like in a game, I could experience something just exactly what you just said. The kind of like the whole attacking, like the positive attacking or whatever. You could experience something with that emotion in a game, whether it's your coach is yelling at you or fans yelling at you, getting booed or something. Like how are you going to respond to that? So it's all just it's just all stuff for preparation and.
But it's not easy. Like what I'm trying to
not.
get you to tap into, and I know I'm coming at you, but like this is so helpful for the kids. Is like Taylor, this is challenging, right? This is challenging for a professional, right? I think that's what I talk about the challenge a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, even the people in the major league ranks, there's a lot of improvement necessary for the mental game as well. Not everybody's perfect, even at the highest level. We all have our mental flaws, and even sometimes the best of the best can get caught in those mental flaws as well. But what separates them from everybody else is the response. They'll let it affect them maybe for like a second or two, and then they're over it. The response. The response mechanisms, or however you want to call them, are what separate the best of the best from everybody else.
Yeah, I like that. You've had some good one-liners in this. Cut that up, dude. Put you on that task.
Most one-liners I've had in a while.
Been there. One of the other things that I felt proud of you and your growth and development was your scouting and your ability to break down hitters. You and I will especially when baseball's on at the gym, when things were normal, I would always try to point things out, or you would point things out, and we would look at sequences or how guys get set up. Can we talk about, I'm actually going to pull up the doc and read the questions. Do you remember the questions that we had? Can we talk about the process and how that started? And like, let's start with, see if you remember if you had a strategy before, and then like, let's go into the evolution where it's gone now. Because I feel like you're a completely different pitcher than we first met.
Yeah, so I was kind of introduced to the whole like the notebook idea, or the writing down what you did well and what you did wrong after games. I was kind of introduced to that in kind of I think my senior year of college was really the first time I started doing it. And prior to that, I guess prior to that, I just wanted to play. I didn't really want to do like the extra stuff that I probably knew that could help me. But I just wanted to play and just kind of rely on my skill and what I had. But like, there comes a time you can do that in high school all you want, but once you get to college, like, guys are starting to do their homework, and especially on you, and because they want to be better. And there was a point in time for me, my senior year, where I wasn't highly recruited or scouted or whatever, but my goal was to hopefully get drafted. And I think what I was doing then was not going to help me at all. So I wanted to go a little extra, do some extra measures and stuff, and make sure I could be the best player I could be. And I just started writing in a notebook what I could improve on, what kind of take mental notes on hitters as well, what their tendencies were. And then fortunately, like, that helped me have a better, my senior year, that year was my best collegiate year. And then fortunate, I got drafted by the Red Sox, and the Red Sox organization, they gave us
Okay, hold on. What was that senior season? Throw down that line.
I think it wasn't even that spectacular. It was I think I had a 4 ERA, like, on the dot. Ended very strong. Had some complete games. My walk to strikeout ratio was pretty good. I think I hardly walked. I think I walked less than 20 guys that year, and then I think I pitched the most innings in the league for the regular season. Yeah, it was just an all around, like, kind of average to maybe a little bit above average year. But I think a lot of the non-stat stuff kind of separated me. I think with how I carried myself on the mound, and I didn't really let like negative stuff get to me that much. I kind of just pitched with like a poker face, I guess. And I think something like that is just next pitch. That was kind of little mentalities that I started developing. I think really showed kind of like the work ethic side. I trusted. I worked pretty hard that season. I think I just trusted that a lot more. And I think the Red Sox were really the only team that were looking at me, and they saw me pitch one day, and I didn't even have that good of a game. They went to go watch the other guy throwing against me, and like I said, like, I didn't even have that good of a game, but despite if it were like errors in the field or whatever, I think my stuff was probably the best it was all year that game. And they kept watching me, and they kept seeing the, I think, development over the season and how I finished. And then they gave me a chance. And then once I got to the organization, they gave us like this app, and it was I forgot the name of it, but it you could pull up the day you played or the day you pitched, and you can write down different notes, different counts that you think you could have improved on, or whatever, like different it was like a mental notebook on your phone. And then there I was kind of seeing like, okay, guys at this level are doing this a lot more, whether they're forced to do it or not. There's guys, I think there's guys in the major league ranks now that I played with in spring training, or I was around in spring training, Michael Chavis being one of them. That dude writes in his notebook after every AB. Like, literally, like if he has to go, if he was a third out in the inning and he has to go to his position to go warm up, he's in the dugout writing in his notebook before he goes out. Like, so that was something where I was like, okay, this guy's like top prospect in the organization. He's got a notebook. He's writing stuff down. Like, he's doing all the extra work. Like, that's kind of like what it takes to be the best. Like, you can rely on your talent all you want. Like, and you can be the best, pitcher or hitter in the league. And you can still go to the Hall of Fame without doing it. But like, there are guys that don't have like the quote unquote, like God-given talents or success that, some other guys have. So they got to do a little bit more extra. And, for me personally, like, I know to be the best, like I have to do extra. So, I think for this past season was when I developed that scouting game a lot more. I kind of looked at all the pitching sheets of each team that we faced and what hitters did what tendencies, whether they swung first pitch, swung second pitch, if they struggled with a certain pitch. I made sure I took note of that. So when I pitched to them later on in the year, like I had kind of an idea of how they were. And I think that was probably the one thing that helped me out the most this past season with my success and having the best year that I've had professionally was that scouting, kind of having an advantage. Because it's like I said before, everyone's doing their homework nowadays, especially on you. Like they want to be better than you, and so for me, like I need to make sure that I'm kind of more prepared for when I go out there, especially since I don't play every day, so I have a lot more extra time to prepare for when I do play. And then when that time comes, I just got to make sure I'm trying to be ready as best as I can.
Cass, I felt like you were going to say something.
Yeah.
No?
Me?
Yeah.
No, I opened up my computer to make a note. You said something about, it was along the lines of not everybody, the extra work. You realize that to be the best that you have to do extra. And I was thinking like at minimum, you have to do extra work. You know what I just like, and this isn't towards you. This is just thinking out loud, right? This is like, man, that's you got to realize as a young player that if you want to go to the next level, at minimum, you have to be doing quite a bit of extra work. Yes, and then I think to the, what really it turns into is, and I think this is what John is always speaking to, is Trevor Bauer will will forever be the godfather of you can turn anything into a machine. It just depends on how long you take. And how long you have, and it's just a completely different way of thinking about this whole thing than what we've ever been able to think about. So,
growing up, like I'm sure you guys can say the same thing. Like we were good ball players growing up as kids. Like most players think that they're the best players. And but as you keep going, once you get to college, once you get to the higher levels, you realize like you're not the best player on your team anymore. Like everybody was the best. Everybody on your team is the best player or was the best player on their previous teams almost. So it's like you got to do sometimes you got to do something else to separate yourself as best you can.
Well, and I think this is where it always gets into the weird with me, because it does become an even playing field. But it's so uneven, right? Because, hey, be Frank Thomas. Like, can't do that. Like, that's not an option for me, right? And so, like, this is where it's like, to become the best version of yourself in baseball, you have to start getting into a better understanding of what your strengths and weaknesses are. And those quit becoming physical very quickly. It's like, well, I'm fast, or I have a good arm, but then, then we start playing the game, right? And talking about like how we always say like nobody's playing the same game that we're playing, because it's so true, because people can't even get past the like physical side of things, where we're like, well, that's not too complicated. Like throw more, right? Don't be dumb, pay attention, and commit. You have to commit to that at least, right? That's talk about extra. That's not even extra. That's like qualifier, that's to sign up.
Yeah, it's a necessity.
Yeah, it's just like, what are we talking about if that's not part of it?
Yeah.
I think that one of the things that, I'm really, like I said, about how we're able to analyze and looking back, and what I think that we're trying to preach is that if you look at the game and how it goes over people's lifetime of their career, the strategy becomes way more important, right? And I think the thing that we're trying to implement is that if you can bring strategy earlier into your game and you understand where you're at, then you can actually control way more than you think you can. They always say the guys that have the best, research, just like what Taylor was talking about, and if you know how to apply it, right? And I just feel like that when we say that we're not playing the same game other people are, it's because, we're trying to teach 10-year-old cutters and teach them fast, slow strategies and understand how to be more unpredictable as a pitcher and, learn how to throw more and recover more and then get stronger and do it over a safe, longer period of time, as well as study the game and see what the best do.
And here I am being, whatever I am to this whole thing. But then that same exact kid that you're talking about is also the kid that's taking our information and sharing it with anybody who will listen in the nicest way possible. Right. Mm-hmm. And so like this offers kids such like a cool, like, what is better than the cool thing to be, I know how to arm care. I know how to prepare. I know how to sequence. You make that cool. It's just like, it creates you plant a seed in an entire organization that can grow outward from that little guy, just because he's equipped with things and he's a great kid, and so
I'd like to add something to the sequencing, especially like as a kid, with sequencing. That's something I probably learned a lot more of within the past year and a half also, especially like in Little League, you're kind of taught, okay, once you get to 2 strikes, okay, throw a curveball. It's like 2 strikes, throw the breaking ball or whatever, throw fastballs early, breaking stuff late. And I think that was like, obviously I can't remember, but I think that's like a huge theme. And when I was playing in Little League, it's like you weren't thinking of that stuff. You're just playing. And there was like an assumption that you had to do a certain thing in certain accounts or times during the game. Like, I think this past year, like I was studying, or not studying, but like seeing reactions of
studying
swings. Yeah. And like the reactions of different hitters and their swings and how they set up, like you said, John, it's something that like, there's so many like little things in the game as you keep getting older and playing more that like you start recognizing so many more like little things that have so much importance in the game and like the outcome and what can make you better. And it's like, okay, I had a 1-2 count and the guy would lunge forward on a slider the previous pitch. Do I want to go in with a fastball since you lunged forward, or do I want to go back to another slider? Like you have like different options that you want to do, and like sometimes like it's the whole game within the game. They could be deking you, like they could fake a bad swing on a certain pitch so they can get it again. Like these hitters are smart. Baseball players are very, very smart. Like all athletes are smart, and that's what kind of like what makes the game more fun as well, is like the whole sequencing and like learn, like studying each other. Like, okay, what's this pitcher throwing in these counts? Like, what are his favorite pitches to throw? Okay, well, I'm going to sit on a curveball. So like, or whatever, like if he throws me that curveball, I'm taking him deep. If I miss, like, hopefully I look bad because he'll throw me another one and I'll just hit one out of the park. It's like a whole like game within the game that makes it even more fun. But that's like when sequencing comes into play, is like how important it is. And
okay.
It could be taken in so many different directions.
So we have 2 kids on a mound. Okay. Throwing. Taylor, you and I were at the gym, and I'm just going to leave it at this. 2 kids on the mound throwing. They were competing strike competition against one another, and it looked like screwing around from afar, and they were told to not do that. And I was like, this is it. And I'm sitting here thinking, like, You talked about as you grow older, you start noticing these things. Nah, you've been noticing them the whole entire time, but people don't allow you to notice them in your way. If you can't articulate it as a young player, you can't then, do it. And so people get, I feel like parents and coaches put kids in boxes because they make them try to articulate what they know how to do. And it's like, well, dude, I can't do that for another 10 to 15 years, right? I'm not going to be able to speak up for myself in a way that's accurate to what I actually think for a long time because my brain ain't there yet. But what I can do is, without even knowing the words to these things, I know when they, like, think about watching kids play a game. You see them fake each other out, right? And they'll do it like Family Guy chicken fight kind of thing. They'll fake 30 times in a row. Like, how just I can peck at you. Oh, dude, I got to tell you this story. I'm just going to go off here. Okay, so I was at Jason Yuli's house this weekend, and his little son, Jack, it was his birthday. So we're celebrating his birthday, and his son, Jack, 13-year-old, this kid played ping pong for 6 hours straight. And he's just like a little string bean, like loves math, like super into school. And so it's not like he's a jock by any means, but he is all into this. And this is what he does. Okay. I played him a couple of times. He just destroys me. Okay. He goes, I just let people make the mistake. They all do it. And so he would go back and forth. Like, I watched him do like a 45 shot back and forth because he just returns it to the middle, returns it to the middle, returns it to the middle, returns it to the middle. And no, like, he's playing a bunch of drunk people. Like, they don't care. They're not paying attention to that, right? And so that's a situation, if he's in organized ping pong, right? He can't play like that. And so that whole entire thing can be seen in these games, right? You can watch kids play cards, right? You watch them play board games, and you can see how they should be able to compete. And then you put them onto a little league field, and they exactly what you just said. So, I'll bring it back to baseball. And this is, I will talk unfavorably about some of my past experiences in baseball. One of them is that, like, I was so jacked up the fact that at a very young age, I had a catcher and me who were like, can we guess each other the whole entire game, right? Can we go back and forth, and can we get away with some of this stuff? And just nobody was there to say anything. Like, my parents didn't come to half the games. Like, we were just in the middle of nowhere. We had the luxury to do that. So I for sure was throwing first pitch curveballs at a really young age. I could throw a curveball by 7th grade, and then it was just like game over. And the only way that could have existed is if I lived in a cornfield in West Central Minnesota, right? Like, that's the only places where those things can happen anymore. And dude, we were facing kids that had flames on their hats, like number 99 and number 67, like Tide, sponsored by Tide. Like, you know what I mean? Like, ridiculous things. These kids are terrible. So we would see kids also, like, get away with, like, I'm going to throw you 50 this whole game. Yeah. What? Yeah, that way. Like, it's just crazy. Where you guys in Southern California or even in Florida, John, like, you wouldn't see that bad of baseball. Like, I mean, maybe you would, John, but, like, man, no, I swear we
had
saw,
different levels.
We had a catcher that from Albany, Minnesota, that went to the University of Minnesota. I sang all these things to try to remember his name. Don't remember his name, but he had an absolute hose. And it was like, that was it. Whole kid in the state, one catcher had a great arm, and nobody else did. And I could steal on him because his pitchers were terrible. Like, I stole on him standing up. Just a hose. Sort of just like you, Taylor. You could just go like this, and it's just like there. Freaking so much layback. Anyway.
Good days.
I think it's a handicap to that we're having as coaches are calling pitches for kids where they don't have the creativity to go out and throw whatever and walk a guy. Everybody's so afraid of walks, and when the kid plays the video game and nobody's telling him what to do, I guarantee you it's like hammer, because they like to see the movement of the pitches, you know? And so like, I think that one of the things that I've really been leaning in towards, especially with our kids, is, even the younger and the older has been using video games to help kids learn sequencing, you know?
I'm sitting over here laughing because I'm like, I know what you're going to say. And I'm like, yeah, imagine like a bunch of fourth graders sitting back and forth playing this show. And one dude's like, dude, I got to establish my fastball. And fastball away. You're just like, bro, what are you doing?
Exactly.
Are you letting me win?
Yeah. Yeah.
They would think you're such a stupid idiot.
Yeah.
And they're right. And then so this is my experience is like, so I got to experience that thing. And then I was made to feel stupid. Right. So then I go to college and then they're like, what do you mean you can't throw you can't throw your fastball glove side? Well, no, I just throw it up and in on everybody and throw my curveball that goes at their face. No, you got to throw it fastball away. And it's like, okay, I get it. And there's context to that. But since the Kerry Lightenberg, Taylor, did you hear the Kerry Lightenberg podcast?
I actually didn't. No, I did not.
Did you hear us talk about how he was just taught one sequence?
No.
It was just like fastball away, and then curveball or sliders. You know, it's just fast.
That's what it's kind of like, yes. I guess sometimes like it depends on who your coach is and how much freedom they give you. Like they should be giving you freedom at a young age for sure. To because I think a lot of like for me personally, like I consider myself as like a very coachable kid.
You guys want to talk about freedom? Jeez.
And like I was pretty coachable like growing up, so I guess I just didn't want my coach to like be mad at me or whatever. So I just I did whatever he told me to do or threw whatever he like wanted me to throw, and like whether or not I did well or not, I can't remember how like well I did at that age, but like when I was 12. But I think once I started like playing travel ball, I started playing travel ball or like club ball or whatever like at 12, I think, and so I think that's kind of late for a lot of kids, especially nowadays. Like 8-year-olds coming in from travel ball, throwing with us. But I think when I went to travel ball, like it was the first time I led off in games, or like it was the first time like I had to throw from the stretch, and I'm learning this at 12, and like it was weird at first. I was so used to Little League with like all those rules where you don't get to lead off and you can throw out of the lineup whenever you want. Like I was just so used to that, and then once I got to travel ball, like I was introduced to all these different things that I kind of just didn't even recognize were in the game, and so like I was like, damn, this game's a little bit harder than I thought, and then that's when like a bunch more sequencing stuff came into play, and I think our coaches actually let us call games like at that age, and that's when I started introducing more the whole pitching backwards idea, and then. But I think a lot of times at young ages like that, like you said, like there's like those established sequences that you have. Like you have the ahead in the count sequence and the behind in the count sequence. And it's when you're behind in the count, you throw fastballs. They're established a fastball. If you're ahead of the count, you start throwing more breaker balls. Like you don't see breaking balls. You don't see a lot more fastballs in those counts at a young age. I think unless you have like that freedom from your coaches and the creativity from your coaches, like you were talking about.
I was also thinking like the freedom to like I think what makes John so good and what could make anybody so much better is recognizing that when you don't have your stuff, there's also a different way to think about throwing a strike. Right. So like, let's say I'm going righty on righty with my breaking ball, I could actually try to play a different game than the one that I normally do, like, cause some days, where you just like miss glove side all day long with your breaking pitches. Right. Where if you just like could decide to throw it at them, you could like try to induce a swinging, weird, crappy thing by just deciding to think about that sequence a little bit differently. Do you know what I mean? And where like John will, I don't think enough people throw little breaking things in. So I suppose maybe I'm just saying more of like cut stuff in is really gets you away. You get away with so much stuff, like the front door cutter, especially if you can, Yeah.
It's
I
such an
was,
easy pitch. It's such an easy pitch for like a kid to learn too.
I know.
And
I was thinking one more thing. Sorry, and then I'll shut up. So because I don't have a formulated thought, I'm just thinking some things out, some ideas that I've had. So how about the back and forth on the side of the rubber? So John and I have talked about, we tend to like being on the right side for righties, left side for lefties for like some really good reasons. But after hearing Randy talk more about like, dude, trying to repeat something is the dumbest thing ever. Like preparing to not be able to repeat something is a way better like way to think about this, right? So if we're gonna go back, if we're gonna kind of lean into what we are at Cutternation, I don't know why we can't be all over the mound, because if I'm struggling glove side, go to the left side of the mound, throw the damn thing at him, and let it. You know what I mean? Like, why can't we make adjustments like that? There's no reason. And to think that I think this is maybe just there's just context now with the amount of spin metrics that we have and how easy it is for us to tunnel. But I think that got a little bit overdone for those reasons. I think John's talked about it with the curveballs popping out of the hand as being like a bad thing. It's like, no, it's this element of surprise. The Barry Zito was the best breaking ball we'd ever seen, and it came out of freaking right field. Like somebody dropped it from the upper deck with one of those shirt launchers.
It was so different. Yeah, that camera angle, I still remember it.
And it's just like, okay, go back to what we're talking about with the kids and experiencing it from, bro, you see these things too. You see the reaction when you throw a curveball at somebody's face and then it's not a strike the other side of the box. Like if you could do something like that to a ball, we're not talking about tunneling. We're talking about like, I might kill you with this pitch because literally I could, right? And then playing into that, playing into who the person is, you can do so much more damage to a bat, right? If you attack the human, right? Don't attack the swing. Don't attack, their stats. Don't attack, the blue and red attack their human. Right. And so if you're playing a video game, you're not actually throwing against Mike Trout, are you? You're throwing against the person sitting next to you. And that has Mike Trout's skill set. Oh, there it is. See what I did there? See what I did there? But that's it, right? And so you have to be able to, because the kids know these things, right? So what do kids do if you let them play? If you allocated 15 minutes of a game, as a baseball practice warm-up, something like that. That was like, it had to be something like baseball. It can't just be tag. You can't like have a good sense of something from tag, but something that's structured and simple, right? Like a short little 1-inning baseball game. Actually, there's the solution of 15. If you watch this, they're going to start picking each other apart, right? If we actually let kids throw against each other on a daily basis, nonstop, right? They're going to know, okay, well, Johnny, all I got to do is throw curveballs. We heard the Wagner brother or cousins talking about it, right? It's just like anybody who faces me, Jordan Buck, the hitting coach at Hamlin, he's faced me 10, 15 times, and he knows that I'm going to throw a ton of sliders, and I know he loves the ball away. So what do? I throw the ball like what seems, it makes no sense. I feel like I'm throwing the ball right down the middle, and he takes it every time because he wants it 10 feet away from him. And so then, then I'll see him cheat. And then I know that I just got that fastball away. It's just like this funny little game. And I usually just throw a bunch of sliders anyway, because it's my best pitch. And sometimes you just have to do that too, So
I really like what you said right there, because I was thinking about that, about if you look at major leaguers, the player pool isn't nearly as vast as like the frequency that you would face people. So like in the travel ball world, you might face somebody one time in 4 or 5 years. So you can't even pick up tendencies. So you're just teaching the most basic of sequences to these kids.
Oh, but you can, right? Okay, so I know where you're going with that, and keep going with it. But the personality part, though, is you can also. So the part that John sees is like, oh, I've seen this kid a million times. Like, I've met this kid. Oh, that's that white American kid that is privileged and is going to have a perfect balanced swing every time and whatever. And if you're wrong, then you go, oh, what do you know? Right?
Yeah.
How often are you wrong, John?
A lot.
No,
No, I know
with
what you
your
mean, but
with your read on hitters.
yeah, for sure. It's 100%. There's so much history and context that like when you see the guy, like we were saying.
But at the same time, you were saying that when you see a million kids, you might as well
Yeah.
teach them a simple pattern.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean that's what they're all getting taught, you know. Especially with I remember helping my buddy coach a team from Minnesota, which is funny. But I went down to Florida. It was the Mob, the Minnesota Mob is what they were. And I started talking sequencing. He needed a pitching guy to help him with this perfect game tournament. And so the first thing, instead of messing with these kids' mechanics, you know, you don't want to be a weird pitching coach. So I started talking strategy to them. And I remember they played second or third ranked team in the tournament, and all of the kids got it. Like I just looked at them from the side and I watched them warm up. They did the usual travel ball thing, you know, where everybody gets their bat out in front of the dugout and takes swings and trying to time up the hitter. And I'm like, wow, we're doing this at like 18. This is ridiculous, you know? And so it looks like, and it sounds like you can hear some of the coaches talking about, because we have the team that I'm helping with has a 6'6", 90-mile-an-hour ace on the mound, right? And so I hear the coach like parading in the dugout, like, be ready for heaters, boys. Like he's just full, like exposing offensive strategy from what they're doing. So I realize that they're going to be an ambush team. And I tell the guy, I go, hey, we're going to throw first pitch fastballs 6 inches off the plate. Okay, no big deal. If they swing at it, no big deal. Right after that, we're going to come fastball inside, and we're just going to go after these kids' hands. Don't set up fastball inside. Set up inner third, if not middle, because they're on top of the plate. So their hands, they don't have the room to get the barrel where it's supposed to be, right? Sure enough, this not only does the kid first pitch of the game throw it 6 inches off the plate, and the dude goes after it and fouls it off the end, right? He hits 93. He hadn't hit 93, but he felt safe off the plate because he knew he wasn't going to get hurt. Because it wasn't like these were some big Georgia kids too. Like they were monsters up there. And he had so much fun not throwing strikes in this perfect game tournament and getting away with it, where it was like everything was literally set up late because they were doing all the JUCO relay stuff with all the names and numbers. And then he was literally first pitch either up out of the zone or off the plate, and they would swing at it every time. And you could hear the coaches and the players not recognizing that we weren't throwing strikes, so we didn't change the strategy for the first 2 pitches of the game, right? And not even till I want to say it was like the second or third time through, he even threw a breaking ball first pitch. Right. So he, you know, using the aggressiveness against them, he came up to me later and he was like, that's like the most fun I think I've ever had pitching, where I understood that the guys were over 75% chance of swinging, right? And swinging at anything. And I said, you can see it, you know, all of the fast twitch movement. You can see that they're jacked up. They got leg kicks. They're trying to attack. They're aggressive takes on pitches. I'm like, oh, dude, you don't have to change anything, right? So a kid ends up going like 5 or 6 innings, and they win the game like 2-0. And I think every kid on that team was a D1 prospect, and this kid was just getting looked at by a couple different schools. So it's the strategy that I'll lean on every time is I think that coaches maybe misusing their focus on how to help athletes, really go about playing this game when we're worried about mechanics instead of the strategy on how to win the situation.
It's dude, that's crazy. I didn't have a way of saying it. Like in Minnesota, I was always saying, like, especially with the youth coaches, I'm like, quit teaching mechanics, quit teaching the swing, the throw, because I'm like, dude, I do this professionally and I can't. It's tough, especially with the swing. Like the swing is so tough, but oh man, it's so easy to know how to teach these things as an adult. Right. And as you get to become an older player, right, it's so easy to walk through some of these strategies and then actually like do it. It's very similar to this, this funny idea of asking yourself the question and then actually answering it. Right. Like, what should you do this weekend? No, like, actually what should you do, and then do it. Like what should I actually do to get these hitters out right now, and then actually do it. Don't change the plan right away. And that's the other thing too, by the way. We haven't really ever talked about that. I have totally gone into games and then like I have to throw a fastball arm side and I have to throw my breaking ball. And I got a catcher that I haven't had before, and he doesn't believe me when I tell him that that's exactly what I want to do. And now I'm sitting here second guessing my plan because this guy has, that I could in my head instead of just like boom, boom, boom. So maybe throw that back to you, Taylor, because you've had to play with a lot of different catchers, yes?
Oh yeah, and a lot of them obviously like they know what they're doing, but sometimes it's about making sure they know like what I like to throw or what in certain counts I might throw something different than what they're normal like what they're normally used to like with other pitchers. Maybe like something maybe they like to call a curveball on a certain pitch, but I just want to go cutter or something. Like it's about building that trust with your the man behind the plate who's giving you the calls. And it's like one of the best feelings like in a game when you're thinking of one pitch and the catcher calls it and you're like, yes. Like, it's like when there's no like shaking involved. I think that adds a lot of confidence to a pitcher as well during the game, where they're just like, okay, we're on the same page. Like, okay, then that definitely, this is definitely the right call. And
why does that seem like a difficult idea? Like, even what you just said.
It's a trust thing. It's a trust thing, though.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's like you're not actually like, oh yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking every single time. It's like, oh yeah, I would totally do that too. So that's it's a lot of that, right? It's like
no, I'm not saying I'm not disagreeing with the idea. What I'm saying
I'm
is
just adding.
Yeah, exactly. Taylor and I talk about. I think that's something that we've practiced, Taylor, about like how to tell your catcher what to do. Like especially as a new, like you go to a new team, for example, this is a great one. Your catcher for Milwaukee that you're going to is my former roommate, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I taught. He's from Venezuela, and he plays all over the world, and great dude. Shout out to Manny, and but he knows all my sequences, and he used to get so mad at me at the beginning because he, Poppy, you got to go fastball. You got to throw your fastball. And I would be like, hey, listen, I know these dudes, right? I understand what they can't hit and what we can do. Trust me, we're going to throw this cutter here. We're going to throw this here. And, we went out and did it. And I remember he would just, he eventually ended up just, knowing exactly what to do in what sequence, and we would talk about it ahead of time. So the conversation of explaining what you like to do and giving sequences to your catchers so that you are on the same page and you don't have to think about it. I feel like it should not be as difficult of a situation as it seems to be. And I just don't feel like people know to have that deep level of a conversation before they go into competing against a hitter.
Oh yeah.
No. I'm playing a different game. Let's shut it down.
Yeah.
Let's keep moving
Perfect.
on.
Thanks, Taylor. This is perfect.
We all matched our hats for those.
I know,
of you
right?
That only listen to this.
Murder.
Great.
It's Monday. Murder Monday for sure. Well, Taylor, you're the best. Thank you. TBA_baseball Instagram. He'll be keeping going, and we always feature Taylor because we love him and he's great. So thanks. Please rate, review, and subscribe. And maybe we should talk about some of the people Taylor, that we can get on here. That'd be fun. So
yeah, for sure.
All right.
Definitely.
Yeah, I'm trying to rile up some moondogs here and get some kids on that I coached. It's like Kyle McDonald's is with the Yankees and some other kids that are just awesome players. So let's get some more players on here.
Yeah, definitely. For sure. All right. Thanks, bud. See you in a few.
All right.
Peace out.